Hello there, everyone, men, women, and children of all ages. This is your friend, the jack of all trades with the foul mouth, Commodore Urban. And this is my second try at recording this video. The first time I was nearly done, and my fucking brother came in and screwed me over. Screwed it up. Came right in the middle and was telling me about some dumbass video game or something. I was like, I don't give a fuck. So yeah, fuck you, brother. Now let's try this again. This is a book review, guys. Just got done reading it, and we're gonna talk about it. If you guys remember that book haul that I had a few videos ago, where I gotten over $110 worth of books for about $4.50, and one of them was this one. Shipwreck, The Strange Fate of the Morro Castle. This caught my eye. You know, what did catch my eye? I only saw it like this. And when I was going through it, it fell out and hit me in the foot and landed up like this. I saw it and I read Morro Castle. It's like, oh, I know that ship. So I got it. It was either this or a rough guide to the Titanic. I really wish I could have got that rough guide to the Titanic. Ah well, maybe I'll find it some other time. But anyway, Shipwreck of the Morro Castle is a complete detailed story of the Morro Castle's fatal voyage, which I will read the description of the book to you from the flaps of the jacket. And it says right here, in the early morning hours of September 8th, 1934, the luxury cruise liner Morro Castle, carrying 316 passengers and 230 officers and crew, caught fire a few hours out of New York Harbor on a return voyage from Havana, Cuba. The fire spread with terrifying swiftness, transforming the ship into a blazing inferno. 134 people died that night. Was it an accident? Until now, that question has remained unanswered. In Shipwreck, authors Thomas and Witts proved that the disaster was no accident, that it was planned, meticulously and deliberately, by an officer of the Morro Castle. His name, George White Rogers, chief radio officer aboard the ship. They show that quite possibly Rogers was also responsible for the untimely death of the ship's captain, who died mysteriously, apparently poisoned, several hours before the fire broke out. Other embarrassing questions are answered. Questions raised during the investigation following the disaster are never satisfactorily answered. Why was a proper alarm never given? Why did the firefighting equipment, such as it was, fail to function? Why were only 2 lifeboats launched, and why were they filled with crew and officers instead of passengers? Gordon Thomas and Max Morgan-Witts have written a spellbinding moment-by-moment account of the Morro Castle's last voyage, one of the most spectacular disasters ever to stir the Atlantic Ocean. In interviews with eyewitnesses, survivors, rescuers, investigators, they have uncovered the startling answers to a multitude of questions that have surrounded the case for almost 40 years. The result of their research is a dramatic tale of personal heroism, obvious incompetence, tragedy, and quite possibly murder. Da da da. I know I had to add that, sorry. But yeah, this book really opened my eyes to the Morro Castle, because beforehand I knew about her, and I knew she had a sister ship named Oriente, which, you know, later on after the Morro Castle disaster, the Ward Line became known as the Cuban Mail Line, and, you know, the Oriente still was a very popular ship up until her last days when she was scrapped. But yeah, I didn't really know much till I read this, and when I read this, it was just like, it blew me away. You know, especially that crazy about the George White Rogers. He was a guy that had so many severe mental disabilities that he had no business being on that ship. He had no business being in fucking society. You know, with his long string of criminal activity, mostly petty theft. But because he had, you know, genetic disorders and stuff, you know. and he thought, the world was after him and stuff, so he went after the world first. After the Morro Castle disaster, he tried to kill the chief of police in Bayonne, New Jersey, which that was a failed attempt, and finally, he actually, years later, killed an elderly man and his daughter or whatever, killed him in cold blood or something. So, really, really fucked up shit, But, the story of the Morro Castle, though, I mean, it explains, moment by moment of the voyage from, Havana to where she finally ended up, burnt out on the beach of Ashbury Park. And the fire was started right here in a linen, in a closet, right by the writing room, which was on this port side on B deck, which was roughly right here, right below the forward funnel in this region, right here, if you guys can see. And it says right here, fire started here. So, and also the fact that actually in a later chapter, it was said that Rogers even said that it was an incendiary device that he used and stuck it in a pocket of a steward's jacket in that closet, which caught fire. And there was something here. I don't know if I can find it or not, but if I can just remember what was said. If I can find it here, I don't know. They were talking about, like, right here, here it is. Here we go. It was Rogers who noticed the anchor dragging. The consideration over that had hardly abated when the chief radio operator asked aloud what a number of others were thinking at the moment. Staring intently at the polished smoke, Rogers asked, "How come it got hold so quick?" "It was set." Hackney's accusation got a chorus of agreement. "I'm positive it was set. It spread too fast," repeated Hackney. Arthur Pendon thought it looked like a chemical fire. The flames in the writing room were blue and white, just like you get with chemicals. Rogers listened carefully to the conversation, but when he was asked about his opinion, he just shrugged apologetically. "Guess I was too busy getting the SOS to notice the color of the flames." Acting Captain Worms killed further speculation. "If it was set, I guess I know why." He glared at Abner, baffled and unaware of Worms' suspicion about it. The junior operator looked uneasy. Which, William Worms was acting captain after Robert Wilmot was killed. He was poisoned. I think the guy was poisoned. And there's a picture of the captain right here. And of course, he looked like a pretty healthy-looking man, honestly. I think he was poisoned, and I think it was George White Rogers that killed the poor man. And of course, burnt his ship, too, on top of that. And here's a really nice picture of the Morro Castle in better days. She's a very lovely little ship. The reason why I'm saying little is because she wasn't that big. She was about 500 and some odd foot in length. She wasn't in the class of the superliners, but she was still a very nice ship. Her and her sister, the Oriente, were. But there was just so many different, characters, I guess you could say, in this drama, even though they were real people. The reason why I say characters is because you gotta have, of course, any great drama, you have your set of people. First Officer William Worms, which became the acting captain. Chief Engineer Ibn Star Abbott. Chief Radio Operator George White Rogers, which this is the crazy psychopathic bastard right there that did what he did. Seaman Joseph Spilkins. Chief Stewardess Lena Schwalz. Steward Daniel Campbell. Deck Storekeeper William O'Sullivan. Second Assistant Radio Operator Charles Mackey. Chief Steward Charles Wright. Cruise Director Robert Smith. Assistant Engineer Anthony Bullinger. Second Officer Ivan Freeman, which was later acting first officer. Dr. Amelia Giro, which he was a passenger. Dr. Joseph Bergstein, passenger. He had a son on board with him on that trip, and sadly his son perished. That was sad. Dr. Charles Cochran, passenger. Him and his sister were on board, and his sister perished. Sadly. I mean, if you're reading this book and stuff, the two authors, Thomas and Witts, they put you there. They put you right there. It's like they drug you all the way back to September of 1934 and placed you on the decks of the Morro Castle as she was burning out of control off the coast of New Jersey. Being pushed ashore by the tide and stuff, and it's very chilling. Very good work, There's not a lot of books that can really put you into that place, but this book really puts you into that spot. And here's some final pictures, never in the book. Of course, picture of the Morro Castle burning. There's another one of her burning up. Lifeboat landing at Spring Lake. Two pictures of her, beached, near around near the boardwalk at Ashbury Park. There's lifeboats, clothing on the deck, and finally, the last picture, the Morro Castle being cut up for scrap. But this book here, honestly, they're like when I got this book, this was a $60 book on Amazon, and I looked up other books about the Morro Castle, and there may be a little bit over half a dozen or maybe less written about the Morro Castle. And it makes me wonder why. I mean, she's not really talked much about in the ocean liner community. I mean, she's kind of one of those almost forgotten subjects. And honestly, we shouldn't forget about this. This was a terrible disaster. This should not be forgotten about. And that's why I would like to bring this back into light a little bit with the review of this book. This is an amazing book. If you love ocean liners, you love ocean history, and you like to learn about ship disasters, definitely read this book. It definitely gives you a great insight into the surroundings of the disaster and the coming of it, and what happened during the disaster and after the disaster. So, I hope you guys enjoyed my book review. And if you have any questions or comments about anything, leave them in the comment section below and I will get back with you. And as always, if you're new to the channel, you like what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, become a part of the Commodore's crew, and you'll be known when I upload new videos. So until next time, this is Commodore Urban, saying have smooth seas and clear skies, happy sailing with you, and God bless. You take care now. Goodbye.